Adam, give us an update on who's paying their rent and where you're surprised.
Great. Thank you very much, Vonnie, for having me on the show. As you said, we do have a very large portfolio of tenants across the United States, about over 2,000 properties, 90 million square feet that we manage in retail, hotels, office, industrial, healthcare. We pretty much touch all commercial types of real estate, with maybe the exception of traditional multifamily. So we really do have a very good feel for what's going on with regards to rents around the United States. And to answer your question directly, most tenants are holding up pretty well, especially in the office and the industrial side of the business. We're seeing close to 100% rents being paid in April on the office and industrial side. The biggest area of weakness we're seeing is on the retail side, really. We have about 700 different retail sites around the United States, and we've only collected about 40% of the rents in April for retail. But we have been working really closely with the other 60%. I mean, this is one of the advantages we have. We've been in business now for well over 30 years. We have very close relationships with all these tenants. And while we may get deferred rent in April, meaning the rents in April might be deferred, we're highly confident that the vast majority of those rents will ultimately be collected in later months. But right now, the name of the game, especially with retail, is trying to be, work with our tenants, especially tenants we've had a long relationship with, and try to help them get through this very difficult period at the same time.
Yeah, and a huge amount of distress in retail particularly. Now, you own 5 mortgage REITs and you're in the nice position of not actually having any debt to repay, and it's your relationship with your bank that's actually giving you a little bit of leeway here. But I'm curious as to some of the other types of properties that you own, for example, senior living, assisted living facilities and so on. Do you anticipate problems with those sectors going forward?
That's a great question. In the senior living space, you're right, we have a large portfolio of those types of properties. We take care of about 24,000 senior folks in about 260 communities all throughout the United States. We don't see significant problems financially in that sector. That sector, of course, is feeling is really on the front lines of what's going on in the United States today with regards to the pandemic. And from my perspective, I've just been amazed at the dedication of the employees at that side of the business. We operate that business as well, and it's really great to see how people are volunteering to, put in extra hours to help take care of these folks. Of course, they may be among the most vulnerable, and I think we're doing everything we can, and I think we're doing a very good job of keeping that population very safe.
So earlier today we were speaking with Craig Fuller of FreightWaves, and it was interesting because he talked about it being very challenging for trucking companies that are exposed to the stock market, for example, or flatbed trucks and so on. And you actually own an amount of truck stops, which happen to be a leading indicator in many different ways, right? Because there's the sale of gasoline there, as well as, of course, the visits from truckers. How are your truck stops doing?
Yeah, great question. And I agree with you. It is a little bit of a leading indicator. We sell about 2 billion gallons of diesel fuel a year to truckers across the United States. We run about 250 of those sites. They've been deemed essential services by the federal government and all state governments, and so they are up and operating. The staff there are doing an amazing job of keeping what we believe is a very vital part of the economy continuing to operate well, and that's servicing truck drivers that are moving goods across the country. I'll tell you what we saw as the pandemic sort of started mid-March through the end of the first quarter. There was actually a little bit of a spike in fuel volumes that we saw, and that was really our best guess is that was really restocking inventories in food services. And then what we have seen since really the beginning of April is a little bit of a weakening in the fuel volume. And right now what we're trying to figure out is this just a sort of temporary thing that's a direct result of the closing of the economy or large swaths of the economy, or is this a leading indicator that we have begun the recession, and this is this indication of things yet to come in that space? The good news is, and this was something I personally was very happy to see, that the supply chains have been working, and they have been working for throughout this pandemic. It's really just the volume of fuel that we've been able to sell in March and then now into April.
So you don't have the malls, Adam, but I'm curious as to what you think we'll see at the end of this. Will retailers reopen? Will fast casual restaurants reopen? And will it be the same?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it really hinges on consumer behavior and how this all opens up. An area we spend a lot of time thinking about. You're right, we don't own a lot of malls, but we do own a fair bit of casual dining restaurants, quick service restaurants. And what we're trying to figure out is, what's the effect going to be on that sector going forward? Obviously, it's been, very hard on that sector during this pandemic because almost all the restaurants are closed. But as the economy starts to open up, will people's behavior change? And that's going to really dictate what happens in that sector.
Yes.
And I think that's an area we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out.